When people talk about difficult challenges in Black Ops 3, there's always one that instantly gets mentioned. It should be of no surprise then that this challenge also gets requested to me a lot. The challenge I refer to is called Ninja. Get 5 clutch medals by defusing the bomb when you are the last player alive and enemies are alive in Search and Destroy. If you're actively going for the 100%er challenge, you'll likely hit a roadblock when this behemoth stands in your way. Rest assured, however, that I went as in-depth as I possibly could for this one, attempting to cover all class setups, tactics, and tricks to help you succeed. Before we dive too deep though, let me just reiterate the stipulations for this challenge. Lots of people have sent me clips asking why they didn't receive a notch towards this challenge. Most of the time, it's because they didn't follow the rules. You must be the last one alive on your team when you defuse the bomb. There can be teammates alive prior to you completing the defuse, but the moment the round ends from the defuse itself, you have to be the sole survivor. There also must be at least one enemy still alive. There can be more than one as well, but at least one. So let's go over some basic things you need to know in order to help you complete this challenge. First, the defuse time. The entire point of this challenge is to defuse a bomb, so knowing just how long you have to do this is key. To defuse a planted bomb, it takes exactly 5 seconds. Now in an arena match, the settings are slightly different. The defuse time is actually longer at 7.5 seconds, which can feel like an eternity. Also of note in arena, the planting and defusing are completely silent, whereas in public search and destroy, you can hear it. But how audible is it exactly? As it turns out, it's a bit glitched in public search and destroy. In no circumstances can you hear the actual beeping noise from someone defusing a bomb. There's 2 things you can hear, however. The noise when the person opens the briefcase, and the noise when someone closes the briefcase. Now I tested this extensively, and there's no perk which raises or lowers these noises. Awareness does nothing to affect these, and dead silence also does nothing. Now with that said, as I mentioned, public search and destroy is a bit glitched. More often than not, you cannot hear the opening of the briefcase, which is a huge advantage to someone defusing the bomb. I'd say 9 out of 10 times I witnessed someone defusing the bomb, the opening of the briefcase was silent, which isn't supposed to be the case. We'll use this to our advantage in one of my tactics I'll discuss. Lastly, if you're familiar to Search and Destroy, you may already be aware of this. However, for those just playing the game mode for this particular challenge, it should be noted that you can activate your specialist ability while defusing or planting. Simply hold the button to plan or defuse, which is the square on the PlayStation 4, and while holding that, activate your ability. This can be extremely handy to ensure your defuse is successful. Now let me get something out of the way that should help immensely. And it's something I hardly ever see people utilize. Obviously, you can only complete this challenge when your team is defending a bomb site. One huge mistake I often see is people utilizing a defuse class during a planting round. When your team is doing the planting, you need to focus on obtaining score streaks and your specialist ability. So I highly advise you make 2 classes prior to attempting this challenge. The first class is the planting round class. For this, there's 3 mandatory things you'll need. First, dead silence. If you're playing Search and Destroy without dead silence, you're doing nothing but hindering yourself. Search and Destroy is a sound whore paradise, and people will abuse awareness in order to gain the pre-fire advantage. Nothing is more frustrating than spectating some newbie booby on your team running around knife only without dead silence. Next, the Tier 1 Overclock perk. As you'll see shortly, specialist abilities are a huge asset to aiding you in this challenge, and the earn rates in Search and Destroy are the slowest in the game, which makes overclock essential. Lastly, Ante Up. If you weren't aware, Ante Up now gives you a bonus of 150 points towards your streak each spawn. The rest of the class points are up to you. For score streaks, you simply want to run the first 3, the HCXD, the UAV, and the care package. You can swap out the care package with the counter UAV if you wish, but if you do happen to earn a care package, you might find a decent reward that can help you with this challenge. Thanks to the 150 point score streak starting bonus of Ante Up, you should be well on your way to at least earning the HC car and a UAV. I'll be discussing the use of these score streaks in more detail with the strategies. So with the planning class out of the way, let's talk tactics. First of all, doing this challenge with a full party makes it much easier to complete. Just play as a full team utilizing party chat and stay near each other. Then you let the other team plant. When they do, have your teammates protect you with flashes, smokes, or concussions, should any enemies come at you while you're defusing. When you're about to finish defusing, have them commit suicide either by blowing themselves up or jumping off the map. That's the easiest way to do this challenge, but I realize not everyone has 5 friends to play with, and if you don't have a full party, the odds of the random on your team mucking things up are pretty high. The rest of the tactics in this video are for solo players only, which is what I assume the majority of you are. So there's at least a few viable tactics that can help us get the 5 notches required for this challenge. The first of which isn't really a tactic at all, it's just good old-fashioned luck. Most challenges in Black Ops 3 can be accomplished while simply trying your best. The Ninja Challenge, however, is centered on a mix of luck of other players as well as you playing a crappy style of play, which almost guarantees to lessen your team's chances of winning. The vast majority of people I know who have completed this challenge already have simply gotten lucky that their enemies were so oblivious. For example, an enemy plants the bomb and then runs away, leaving the bomb wide open to be easily defused. Or let's say it's a 2 versus 1 situation. You kill the guy that just planted and the other enemy is on the other side of the map. Again, that's a free clutch medal. More often than not though, the scenario you'll encounter is as follows. It'll be 1 versus 1, which again is the exact condition you want. You'll wait for the enemy to plant, which they'll eventually do. Then you'll have to enter an area with at least 2 entrances to get to the bomb, knowing full well that there's likely someone camping their dick off just waiting for you with an itchy trigger finger. You'll inch your way in with the false assumption that just maybe the coast is clear. As soon as you get to the bomb, you get cold cocked into oblivion. Just look at this position this enemy took. He's got all entrances covered. So this is where the tactics come into play. If this is the most common scenario we'll see, we've got to come up with methods that will actually allow us a shot at defusing the bomb, rather than marching to a planned slaughter. So before continuing, we need to discuss the second class setup. We already have our planting class set up, so now we need one for rounds where we're defending and actually have a shot at the challenge. We'll call this the Ninja Defuse. You'll want Blast Suppressor and Dead Silence. I myself hardly ever run Blast Suppressor, but for this, silence is key. As for a weapon, use whatever you're most comfortable with. I still recommend the KN-44, this time with grip and a suppressor. For the tier 2 perks, I highly recommend Hardwired, as people tend to enjoy putting shock charges and even C4 on the bomb or near the bomb site, and this will help counter those. Not to mention it also helps counter the Tracker perk and the Sixth Sense perk. For tier 1, I still recommend Overclock. As you'll see in a moment, getting your specialist ability is essential to succeeding in this challenge. Flakjacking isn't bad if you're worried about grenades, but I didn't really encounter anyone trying to grenade me off bombs often enough for it to be worth it. That'll leave you with 2 points left for a lethal and tactical, but I'll cover those in more detail when we get to the strategies. Speaking of which, the first goal is to get into the desired scenario. To accomplish this, you have to play it extremely safe at the start of the round. When you're defending, you absolutely have to stay alive. Camp in the back of the map if you have to, but you want to maximize your opportunities. More often than not, your 5 other teammates will rush on ahead and one by one get wiped out, since the odds will be in the enemy's favor due to your own non-compliance. Should enemies come your way, feel free to pick them off, but always remember to leave at least one alive so you have a shot at the challenge. Once you're the last one left, your enemies may try to end the round early just by killing you, but if they can't find you, they'll eventually tire out and plant the bomb. Remember that the typical search and destroy player will plant the bomb and then guard it with their life. With that in mind, we've got a few options as to how to penetrate their campsite. Your initial thought may be to use 2 smoke grenades. When used how they're intended to be used, these don't fare very well, but allow me to show you why. So if you deploy a giant cloud of smoke over the bomb site and then rush in to defuse it, you're basically announcing your intentions. The enemy will see the smoke and know something's afoot. To further complicate things, you can only defuse the bomb from one side, and most people are aware of this. So let's say you do get the element of surprise on your remaining enemy, and then you launch 2 smoke grenades over the bomb site. Despite being hidden in the smoke, they'll know exactly where you'll be since you can only defuse from one side. So smoke grenades used in this manner are bad. The less aware your enemy is, the better. Luckily, there's 2 alternative methods with smoke you can try. The first is a distraction tactic. Instead of covering yourself and the bomb site for a defuse, try throwing the smoke someplace away from the bomb site. More often than not, this will make the enemy think you're going to come from that direction. If they shift their attention to one entrance, you may be able to sneak in from the opposite side. So as long as the enemy doesn't know where you are, this may work. Of course, this tactic mainly depends on how aware and smart your enemy is. The other method is to couple smoke with psychosis. As I mentioned, smoking the bomb site alerts your enemy. but smoking the bomb site and sending in clones of yourself may confuse the enemy enough to give you that 5-second defuse time. Not many people run Psychosis in Search and Destroy, so if the clones get obscured in the smoke, your enemy may not instantly look to the defusing side of the bomb. Again though, this depends on the intelligence of your enemy. Now an alternative to smoke, and a method which I myself favored, was the flashbang. A flashbang effect will last for about 4.5 seconds, but the intense blinding will start to dissipate after 3 seconds. Still, since it only takes 5 seconds to defuse a bomb, you'll be well over 50% done by the time your enemy regains his vision. I've never seen anyone run Tac Mask in Search and Destroy before, so you should be almost guaranteed a blinding effect. If you couple the flashbang with kinetic armor, you have a real shot at the 5-second window of opportunity. Kinetic armor can drastically decrease time to kill, which will help you defuse. If you know for certain there's someone lingering near a planted bomb, call a UAV in if you have it, or inch your way in and try and draw fire and assess where his position is. Then, chuck the flashbang at him, initiate kinetic armor, and defuse immediately. You'll likely finish before he regains his vision. If he does manage to get a few lucky shots, kinetic armor should hopefully save the day. 2 other useful specialist abilities are Vision Pulse and Heat Wave. Again, if you know someone is stationary near the planted bomb, you can activate Vision Pulse in hopes to scare them away. Since they'll be lit up bright red, there's a good chance they may flee the area. You can then utilize the flashbang or smoke strategy to help you get a good chance at a defuse. Don't forget that it's possible to activate abilities during a defuse. If the coast is clear to defuse the bomb, but you know someone is just letting this happen as a trap, Heat Wave can help. Begin the defuse, and the moment your enemy reveals himself and strikes, you can turn the hunter into the hunted. Activate Heat Wave while still defusing, and you'll incapacitate your enemy for a good 3 seconds, which hopefully should let you finish the defuse. Now before I talk about the strategy I had the most success with, let me mention a few words of wisdom. Number 1, don't back out of tough lobbies. You want to play against a good team so they plant the bomb. Your team demolishing the other team before they get to plant isn't helpful to your cause. Number 2, don't kill the last enemy. This reduces your opportunities. Remember, at least one enemy has to be alive for this challenge to count. Number 3, defuse no matter what. One of my medals came when it was 3 of us versus 1 enemy. But as I was defusing, my other 2 teammates got killed, and thus I got the clutch medal. Number 4, finding the right maps. Maps that have bomb sites far away from each other are typically better for this challenge. On these maps, it'll take the final enemies watching a different bomb site too long to get to you before you can defuse. For example, if someone is planting the bomb in front of you and you know the rest of his teammates are off somewhere else on the map, let the guy plant, kill him quickly, and instantly go for a defuse. If the bombs are far apart, his teammates will have no chance to come to the bomb and kill you. Number 5, don't forget to switch between your planning and defending classes. The ante-up class helps immensely, and any score streaks you earn during the planning round will aid you when you defend. Just always remember to switch back to your defuse class upon the next defending round. Number 6, don't forget to be smart with any score streaks you do acquire during the planting round. If you earn a UAV during a planting round, for example, you'll want to save it until the enemy plants during the defending round. Once they plant the bomb, then call it in so you know exactly where your enemy is. As I mentioned earlier, if you do run the care package and you earn it, you can be greatly rewarded. One of my clutch medals was thanks to getting a Talon from a care package. Having the Talon active prevented the enemy from getting close and led me to an easy defuse. Number 7, distraction is intimidating. Try to come up with some creative distractions, such as my smoke diversion tactic I mentioned earlier. Sometimes you can push the enemy away long enough to stick the defuse. For example, once I threw a slightly cooked frag grenade and rushed to the bomb to start defusing. The grenade held them in check long enough for that 5-second defuse time. And lastly, be careful with your tactics. Doing the same thing over and over against the same people will likely have them wise up and make it less likely for success. Try running different paths, different techniques, and in different lobbies. So the other tactic for this challenge is one most Search and Destroy players will be familiar with. A true ninja defuse. Let's quickly go over the exact mechanics of how to pull off a ninja defuse. At the start of the round, you immediately go to one of the 2 bomb sites. Upon doing so, you need to find some sort of camouflage hiding spot extremely close by. Then, you wait there motionless. Enemies may even run right by you, but hold your ground. Eventually, they'll plant. Immediately after they plant, you creep up and defuse the bomb. As with other aspects of this challenge, luck plays a huge role. You have to hope that 2 things happen as you're in your hiding spot. Number 1, all your teammates die. And number 2, that your enemy actually plants the bomb without finding you. Luckily, as I discussed in the class setup, you'll have the hardwired perk on. The hardwired perk 99% negates an enemy who has the Sixth Sense perk on. I just recently did a full video discussing this, which I recommend you watch as well. Long story short, the only way a Sixth Sense user will be able to see you on their minimap is when they are physically touching you and it's from behind or to the side. If you back yourself into a corner, only your front is exposed. The enemy can even stand on your face and be none the wiser that you're even there, despite having the Sixth Sense perk. So the hardwired perk is mandatory for a proper ninja defuse. So if you're going to try just the basic ninja defusing, I would greatly suggest dressing the part. What I mean by that is, don't try to hide while being blinged out in a super shiny hero armor. Or even worse, looking like a koala bear crapped a rainbow on your outfit. I would recommend Spectre's original outfit. It's a nice full body black suit. It's nice and dark and it's great for hiding in shadows. One of the better ninja defuse tactics is also one of the more outrageous ones, and that's to spring into action while the enemy is still planning. The vision of the planner is obscured by a large amount thanks to that massive briefcase. Therefore, they shouldn't be able to see behind them at all. So when they plant, creep right up behind them. You want to worm squirm your way as far up their ass as you possibly can. As soon as the defuse prompt appears, go for it. The enemy will do one of three things. A, they'll run away immediately after planning. B, they'll stay in the same spot they are and guard the entrance. Or C, they'll spot you and kill you. Two of those options are good for a clutch medal. But there's a few things we can do to raise the success rate. First of all, holding an item in your hand in a prep state will reduce your idle movement. The less movement your character makes, the less chance you have of being spotted. I tested every preppable item in the game, and most people just use a concussion grenade or a smoke grenade. But as you can see, the animation of the head movement is still prevalent. Oddly, it's the combat axe that's actually the best item to use. There's no head movement whatsoever while prepping this item, although your character does raise one arm behind his head. But this can sometimes help conceal you even further. One thing to note for a ninja defuse is that if you remain motionless for a certain amount of time, a warning will appear saying that you need to move or you'll get kicked from the game. Simply inch forward if you see this warning. When it comes to ninja defusing, active camo can be quite beneficial. However, be warned that it makes a massive noise indicator, and kinetic armor does the same as well. This is the range you can hear active camo being deployed. It's insanely large. If you plan on being stealthy, you may want to pass on this ability. Regardless, active camo lasts for approximately 5.183 seconds, or at least that's when you start to fade back in and become visible. Remember that it only takes 5 seconds to defuse, so essentially you can be invisible the entire time. Finding a good hiding spot to lie in wait for the ninja defuse is key. While I don't want to give away each and every spot I've found, I'll show a few that can be utilized to their full potential. I highly advise you play around in a private match and find locations such as these. So first, the B site on Aquarium. This cardboard box makes you almost completely invisible, even more so if you prep a grenade as we discussed earlier. In this example though, the combat axe would probably expose you, so you'll also want to experiment with which item to prep as well. The B bomb site on the map breach near this wheelbarrow can also be elusive. A typical planner won't even look to the right, which means you'll be completely hidden. Most people playing Search are only focused on getting to the bomb and planning it. They won't think to check every nook and cranny for people ninja defusing. The B site on evac also offers a nice spot inside these boxes. This spot also allows you to see the difference prepping an item can make. So in this scenario, the combat axe reveals you a little too much. A smoke or concussion, however, further conceals your character. Now this last one I'll show you is by far my favorite. It's on the DLC map Splash at the B-bomb site. There's a few plants here that you can completely conceal your character into. You're so well hidden that I guarantee no one will be able to find you. So as you can see, with a little practice in private matches, you can find amazingly secure spots to hide in. The one bane to this strategy is the UAV. You may have noticed I didn't indicate to use Ghost on any of my class setups. As you should be aware, you have to be physically moving to trigger Ghost. So even if we were to run it, you can't just get up and sprint around. The entire point of this tactic is to remain motionless. So if an enemy calls in a UAV while you're hiding, you're pretty much screwed. Even more so if you're the last one remaining. At that point, you should probably just abandon the attempt. Always listen to see if the enemy calls in a UAV. Lastly, two things I didn't mention that some people may find helpful are Hardcore and Arena. In Hardcore, after the enemy plants, You can team kill any teammates left alive to help your cause. This is risky business, of course, as you'll likely get killed in return on the next round. As for Arena, there's a few benefits to this mode. First, there's smaller teams, so you're more likely to be just 1 versus 1 or 1 versus 2, instead of say 1 versus 3 to 6 enemies. I've also noticed the bomb is planted sooner and more often. And lastly, people don't expect a ninja defuse in Arena, so once they plant, they search for the kill instead of staring at the bomb for the entire countdown. The only drawback to Arena is the defuse time is 7.5 seconds as opposed to 5. And that, as they say, is that. Oftentimes I'll see people asking for advice on this challenge, and the typical response is to say, just get lucky. While there's truth to this, there's definitely ways to make life easier as you go for this challenge, as I've just discussed. This challenge is a numbers game. I was usually the last person alive at least once per game, and I'd say every third game I had a defuse opportunity. It probably took me around 80 games to get my 5 clutch medals. Just don't get discouraged. My goal with this video is that you can mix and match some of the tactics I've outlined, and don't feel obligated to do things exactly as I have either. For example, I recommended overclock on both my class setups to help you get your ability faster. You could easily swap that out for the 6th Sense perk, and doing so can help you identify potential bomb planters, which is extremely useful in the true ninja defuse tactic. Even more so when the bomb site is behind a wall. This will make it so you can easily locate a user who isn't using the hardwired perk, which of course will help you sneak in there for a hopeful defuse. One thing that'll really help is to be able to maneuver your way to the bomb site in less than obvious ways. This kind of tactic would involve some pretty advanced movement, as well as an extremely solid grasp of all the movement mechanics. However, it's super effective. You just need to think outside of the box. Unfortunately, there's no solid tactic that can 100% guarantee you a clutch medal. If nothing else, hopefully this video motivates you enough to go out and at least attempt to succeed at this challenge. With a little luck, you'll eventually get this challenge by maximizing your opportunities.